Hey guys, what's going on? And I'm playing the Mighty Quest for Epic Loot. But I'm not really playing it right now. This is a post commentary. I haven't done one of these in a while. It's just doing that so I can be a little free from distraction, because I'm going to be talking about life events in this video, because last week was pretty exciting and stuff, and I wanted to share it with the YouTube world and stuff like that. So, last week I got contacted by Ubisoft, and they were like, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to our studio in Montreal to check out our game, The Mighty Quest for Epic Loot?" Hence the game that's in this video right now. And I was like, looking at that email, is this legit? Is this like a spam account, like someone trying to like get some information or something like that? And no, it was legit. And I was like, are they talking to me? Did they confuse me with some other YouTuber? Are you sure you don't want someone like really big to fly across the country or something like that? Because it seems like something someone really big would do. But nope, they were interested, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go to Montreal. I've never been to Montreal. Well, I had never been to Montreal. For those that know me, I usually visit Ontario, Canada, to visit family and stuff. I've got those Canadian roots. Maybe that's why I got chosen or something like that. Maybe it was completely random, but whatever. The fact is that I got contacted. So, I have never been to Montreal, and suddenly, I was going to Montreal in a week, and I was like, oh, okay. And also Chilled Chaos was going, so so we were going to spread the bromance to 2 countries now instead of 1. We were going to hang out in Canada. Soon enough, we'll be going to Mexico, and we'll be going to Europe and Asia, and we'll spread the bromance across the world and stuff like that. So yeah, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so I was suddenly going to French Canada in a week. Montreal is a French place, Quebec is French, and I was like, why the hell am I holding scissors? That's what I was like. I'm cutting my nose off, because that's how I'm going to speak French. Omelette du fromage! Getting a little sidetracked here. I should probably put down the scissors. So yeah, French Canada. I took a couple years of French in high school, so I could get by with a little bit of French, but I was a little, like, concerned of, like, you know, proper etiquette and stuff when dealing with people who speak French. Because I've heard stories from people, this could be totally stereotypical, and I don't mean to, like, offend anyone or anything like that. So I always hear that a lot of, like, French Canadians will get very, like, they'll have a lot of pride in their language and stuff, and they could actually... They can actually like take offense if you just like suddenly start talking to them in English and stuff like that. Because I actually have some of my family has visited Quebec before, and they, like, it wasn't necessarily Montreal. They would, like, you know, stop in a gas station or something like that somewhere in Quebec, and all of a sudden they would try to talk to someone, and then they would, like, you know, they speak English. You would know that they speak English. You can tell that they speak English because they're like, you know, the way you respond to them and stuff. But they refuse to talk to you in English. Like, you have to try out the language or something first before they're even willing to talk to you in English. So I was like, okay, so maybe that's the etiquette I use. I attempt speaking French first, so I learn a few phrases like parlez-vous anglais or something. Do you speak English? And you know, maybe they're like, at least you tried it. Okay, I will now speak to you in English because you tried our French language. And I was like, okay, I can respect that. It's showing respect to people in French. So I would be like that one guy visiting Montreal, and I would be like, bonjour, and then they would be all confused, like, oh, parlez-vous français? And then I'm like, no, je parle anglais, or I speak English. So, like, sometimes they would get a little confused, so I was just sitting there the whole entire trip going, so... What do I do? Do I just straight up speak English, or do I speak French? I don't want to be rude here. Some people were saying just speak English, whatever. It's Montreal, they're bilingual. Everyone will know it. Don't confuse people. Be straight up. And then some people were like, no, I think you should at least attempt it. Very confusing when talking to people. Okay, so anyways, I get on my plane to, oh yeah. Okay, so... The trip kind of started out pretty exciting because it was during Olympics time. The Olympics were still going, and it was the day of the gold medal game for women's hockey. So I jumped on my flight from Sacramento to Washington, D.C. That was like my, my first leg of the trip. And it was about like a 4-hour flight or something like that. But it was at the exact time that the gold medal game for the women's hockey in the Olympics was playing. So they had DirecTV on the flight. So I got the opportunity to watch that game for the entire flight. I was rooting for Team Canada. Team Canada was very... They were behind the whole game, and I was getting extremely stressed out. And then I was, sitting there like a nervous wreck for the entire flight. I had one guy sitting next to me. He probably thought I was completely insane. And it got to the third period. If those of you have been following the game, Canada scored 2 goals at the very end of the third period, and then like as soon as they tied the game with the U.S., it was 2-2. I just like jumped out of my seat, and I was pretty sure I was the only one watching that game. And if I wasn't the only one watching the game, I'm pretty sure I was the only one rooting for Canada. So anyone who was on that flight probably thought that I was an idiot when I just jumped out of my seat for no reason. And then it went to overtime, and then Canada scored, and then I jumped out of my seat again. And I heard no other cheering, but I was pretty excited, and everyone thought I was crazy. But then the next thing I knew, the flight was over, so that made the flight go by really fast. And then on my next flight, it was just Washington, D.C. to Montreal, and it was a pretty short flight. It was just nothing but me sitting in the back of the plane pretending like I'm asleep, because the people next to me are just 2 guys hitting on the flight attendant the entire flight, and I thought it was kind of awkward. And then I was in Montreal, and when I got to Montreal, it was like a sketchy. It kind of had a sketchy feel, because we got off on the tarmac. It wasn't on like one of those like tube thingamajigs or whatever you would call it. I don't know what they're. It was like, those gate things where like it kind of connects to the plane and stuff like that. You have to walk down it. Yeah, we got onto the tarmac, and then we got into the building, and we were just going down this dark hallway, and it seemed like a maze when we were in there as well. It was like, did we like land in the wrong place? Are we actually like in some third world country? Are we walking to our deaths right now? Did they try to intimidate us by having us walk down this dark hallway? I'm just putting up pictures, by the way, wherever it may be on the screen, because I was stupid and didn't take any like vlogging footage. I was kind of just like amazed by the whole trip. Oh, Ubisoft, yeah. And that was cool. Very, very welcoming start to the journey in Montreal. I had no cell service at first. I was like sitting there trying to fiddle with my phone to try and get some signal. And I was in a dark hallway, walking to my death. And then I got to customs, and this was my first test of, okay, so how do I handle the French people? And how do I handle customs? Because whenever I go into Canada, it's usually like my parents that would handle it. So I was like sitting there with my passport. I was like kind of frantically going like, bonjour. It's like then so he was like kind of taking the hint, like, okay, so he speaks French, right? And all of a sudden I'm like, here you go. He's like, oh, English. Okay, that's cool. So, okay, I'm speaking English. I successfully spoke English with a French guy in Montreal. So I'm just kind of like frantically giving him all my stuff, and he's like, okay, it's cool. Like I told him I've never done this before. He's like, okay, yeah, it's cool, it's cool. Okay, so here's my stuff and blah blah blah. And he's like, what's the purpose of your visit? And I was like, a game studio has like flown me out here to like check out a game and stuff. And he's like, so is this like work and stuff like that? And I was like, not really, I guess, maybe. And he was like, okay, well, if it has anything to do with work, it kind of gets a little iffy there. And so I was like, oh god, this is not good at all. Because like I guess you need like a work visa or something like that. And I was like kind of sarcastic, like, well, would it help to tell you that I am a Canadian citizen? And he was like, yeah, it would. And he was like, do you have your card? And then I was like, no. It's like, then that doesn't really get us anywhere. And then he kind of just told me to like step aside and like go to the immigration and stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm like getting detained or something, aren't I? And then I walk into the immigration place because I was thinking I was gonna get interrogated. And all of a sudden I see like, I run into Caveman Films. And he was like, hey, I know you. And I was like, hey, I know you too. And that's our first YouTube meetup. We're both gonna get interrogated together in Montreal airport. And we're probably gonna get deported. But luckily that didn't happen. We ended up explaining our situations to the immigration people. And they were like, okay, after going back and forth of like, what the fuck is the purpose with your visit? I don't know. Anyways, yeah, we got through it all, and yeah, and then I met my second person, or no, it was like my third person I talked French with. He was my driver to my airport, and I was like, bonjour, and he was like, oh, parlez-vous français? And I was like, no, anglais. He was like, oh, okay, and then we just drove to the hotel, and it was a pretty drive. Montreal like had the Montreal had like the what would be the French word for this, like the Festival des Luminis or something. It was like Festival of Lights or something like that, and the city was all like lit up and stuff, and it looked pretty. It looked pretty pretty as I drove by it, and it was cool. I was like, Montreal, your downtown is pretty cool. I would visit you again for touristy reasons and not slightly work reasons according to customs, even though I wasn't really getting paid, or I wasn't getting paid or anything like that, so I didn't consider it work. It was more like a leisurely type thing. So yeah, so then we got to the hotel. I crashed on my bed for a bit because it was like a 7-8 hour flying day, and I was like, ugh. Flew from California to Montreal. That's a long day. And then we waited for some more YouTubers to show up, and then we went out to eat at like a pub or something like that. And a lot of us got poutine. That was like the very first thing. I actually got poutine without without gravy, so it was just like a plate of fries with cheese curds on it, because I don't eat gravy because I'm actually a vegetarian. And that's like made of like some meat stuff, so I was like, nah, I'll just have the cheese curds and stuff like that. And then who was there? We had Chilled was there, of course. I took a picture of him. That was the first picture I took. I was like, oh, it's this guy. And then we had people from Hot Pepper Gaming, if you've ever heard of them. And we've got Josh Jepson, if you've heard of him. There was Caveman Films, like I talked about. And then we had like Megan, who's a community manager for Ubisoft. And there was Kimberly, who I think works in like PR, or I wasn't sure what her title was. It was like PR or something like that. Hi, Kimberly, if you're watching. I'm sorry if I don't know your title. And there was there were people from Fragdolls as well. There was Seltzer and Esper from Fragdolls, and they're pretty cool people. They're all cool people. I'm not like one person to like, you know, go to bars and stuff and socialize and stuff. I'm kind of like more of an introverted person, but like this group of people. Oh yeah, whoops. And Azurite Reaction. There was Azurite YouTube and Azurite Reaction. I'm like forgetting everyone who was there. It was like a smallish to medium group of people who were there. And I'm not like one to like enjoy like socializing at bars and stuff. Like I'm a very introverted person, and when I'm like around like a big group of people I don't really know that well, I kind of like go, can I like go to my comfort zone, please? But like they were a good group of people, and I was enjoying hanging out with people and socializing and loosening up and being like, YOLO! Okay, I wasn't like YOLO and like taking my pants off and stuff like that, but it was fun. It was fun and stuff. Chilled got drunk. He was totally drunk. He was wasted. He actually took his pants off. I was amazed. And then in the morning of the tour, Chilled and we got up. We weren't in the same hotel room, but he banged on my door pretty early, and we were like, hey, do you want to get some breakfast? And I was like, you know what we should get? You know what we should get right across the street? Tim Hortons. And so we got Tim Hortons. We were talking all to the French people and stuff in the Tim Hortons, going like, bonjour, and they were like, we speak anglais, and then we're saying that in a Spanish accent. I got a bagel, and then I got like a big box of Timbits, because I was thinking that, like, oh, maybe I'll be nice and I'll get like the whole group Timbits, because I'm assuming most of the group is American. I think actually everyone in the group is American. A lot of them probably haven't been like exposed to Tim Hortons the same way that I have been. So I was like, I'm gonna get them all a big box of Timbits. And so here I was, we were getting ready for the tour, and I was like, you know, I was all dressed nicely and stuff. I had my camera and stuff, and I was just like holding a big box of Timbits with me. I don't have the box, I'm just simulating. I got my box. And I end up like walking through the studio of like a box of Timbits throughout the whole day. And like I took it to this meeting room where like people were talking to us about the Mighty Quest for Epic Loot. And I just got like Timbits sitting there on the table. It's like, yeah, whatever. Eating Timbits. Canada man. Canada A. But yeah, anyways, that was the Tim Hortons story. Gotta have my Tim Hortons when I go to Canada. But yeah, anyways, I kind of fast forwarded a little bit to the Ubisoft tour. But anyways, going to the Ubisoft tour, it was like Ubisoft Montreal is kind of located in like an older building in Montreal. I think it's like a 1920s or even earlier building. I wasn't exactly sure what the year was. It was old. And it's kind of like a somewhat of a high-rise. There's a lot of floors to it. And when I walked in there, it was like, whoa, this place is pretty big. I think it's actually one of the biggest game studios in the world, actually. I had a pretty accurate way of describing the studios. Like, you can get pretty lost in it. It's just floor after floor and just room after room. It's just like doorway after doorway. It just spoke IKEA. It was like the IKEA of game studios out there. you just don't know where you are half the time. I don't know how some people get around. But there's a lot of things going on in that studio. I mean, they make so many games, like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and all that, blah, 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 blah. I can't talk about a whole lot of the stuff that I saw because I'm under NDA, but there's a lot of shit going on in that studio. A lot of shit. I mean, I visited like one other studio where they were just working on one game at a time. It was a studio where it was more like everything was on one floor, pretty much, and then, you know, there was maybe like one upper area, but this was just floor after floor after floor. Oh, here's the cafeteria, a whole floor for cafeteria. Floor after floor after floor. Okay, we're going down, we're going up, we're going up, we're going down, we're up, up, down, down, down. It's like, this tour is getting insane. We're on so many staircases, and it only lasted an hour, but I felt like I walked like 5 miles going through that studio. And yeah, I'll just throw up, like, I've thrown up some pictures of like stuff that I took, but yeah, it was pretty cool. We saw some things that were cool. And then after the actual tour part, we kind of like went into a second Ubisoft building where we pretty much spent the rest of the day playing the Mighty Quest for Epic Loot. We were just kind of hanging in this relaxing area where we had like a bunch of computers set up where chilled caveman and I were all just like sitting in a row, and then there were other people were like kind of sitting across the room, but we had our own little group going. And what we wanted to do when we were there is we wanted to like record some footage of the game while we were there, but unfortunately we couldn't do that because like their computers there were kind of like locked down. Like there's no like inserting of USB drives or hard drives or something like that. Like I had an external hard drive ready to like record, but like, you know, game studios, they want to like protect their intellectual property. You don't want someone bringing in a hard drive and going like, oh, I'm gonna take your entire game. So that's understandable. I couldn't record footage, so I can just learn the game and play it here at home, which is why I'm making this video now, because I had to like play the game and kind of learn it a bit before I posted this video. But what we wanted to do is like we wanted to like, you know, record some kind of like live commentary or something like that, where we're all just playing the game, sitting right next to each other, go like, hey, we're both playing like single player games, but we're recording at the same time or something weird like that. I don't know. It was fun. We played it for like 3 hours or so. Like, the game is fun, but we're like, God, we're like tired after playing this game for like 3 hours. And then we were just watching all the other YouTubers like film their stuff. Like Hot Pepper Gaming was there, and they were having we were just watching like Hot Pepper Gaming. They have a show where they have various people in the gaming industry eat a hot pepper, and then they either like review a product or they like try and sell a product while they're in agony from this hot pepper and stuff like that. So they had the community manager Megan eat a hot pepper, and she was just sitting there like trying to sell the Mighty Quest for Epic Loot while she was in agony eating a hot pepper. And being behind the camera, just watching that, well, I wasn't behind the camera, but I was like in the background watching that unfold, was hilarious. And I was just sitting there like trying to hold in my laugh and stuff. And the Hot Pepper Gaming people also, they ate their own hot peppers, or no, they had like really hot sauce, and they interviewed one of the developers of the game, and they were in agony as well. There was a lot of agony. It was a very fun trip of hanging out and stuff like that. And then and then later that day, when we were done hanging out and stuff at Ubisoft. Oh yeah, wait, I also got this T-shirt. I thought that was a pretty cool T-shirt. It's a Mighty Quest for Epic Loot T-shirt, and I thought it kind of like It kind of worked for me because it seemed like a very Viking-y type shirt. So I was like, yeah, I'll wear that because it's like a Viking type thing and it's cool. It's not gonna be my logo, but it works for me. If it's a Viking shirt, I'll take any Viking shirt any day. And then yeah, later that day we I'm like jumping around. Later that day we just kind of like went out to eat in old Montreal and had food, and I munched on a lot of bread. And I had like a salad, and I tried red wine for the first time. I guess it was okay. I didn't get drunk or anything, but it was okay. I'm a noob when it comes to alcohol, so I was like, kind of burns in my mouth. I'm gonna keep drinking it anyways because alcohol. That's how I sound when I drink. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And yeah, and that was about the end of the trip. And then the next day we just kind of like flew home. But God, flying home was an adventure. So I was just thinking like, okay, so it's gonna be a pretty simple day. I'm just gonna like leave the hotel at noon or so and check out, and I just get in a cab, and you know my connecting flight is in Chicago. And then I get to the airport, and the ticketing person's like, well, that can't be right. And I'm just sitting there like, what do you mean it can't be right? And she was just sitting there typing away, and I was just kind of going, so what's the problem? And she's like, I don't really know. It's like, it seems like it's overbooked or something. And I'm just like, what do you mean it's overbooked? And it's like, yeah, we're gonna have to like reroute you. And I was like, oh, for Christ's sake, I'm in another country right now, and I have to like go through this mess. And she's like, okay, so we can fly you into like Toronto, and then you can go to San Francisco, and then you can go to Sacramento. I was just like, that's like 3 flights. And then she's like, yeah, but it's the best we can do. And I was like, So, but the kicker is that my flight was at like 3 o'clock or something like that. You should arrive at the airport roughly 2 to 3 hours before your flight leaves. Yeah, my flight to Toronto was at like 2 o'clock. So now I was like, oh crap. Crap. Luckily I got through the security and and I made it to my Toronto flight. And then I was like, cool. All is well. And then I had to go through customs and everything in Toronto, and then I had like a 3-hour layover. Then I flew all the way to San Francisco, and that was a flight super long, and I talked to some guy who was cool on that flight. And then I got to San Francisco, and then I was like, okay, I don't have a boarding pass to Sacramento. Like, I had a boarding pass to Toronto, and I had a boarding pass to San Francisco, because I was flying Air Canada, but I had to change airlines, and for some reason I didn't have like anything for Sacramento, but like my baggage thing said it was going to Sacramento. That I remember. Where the fuck was my boarding pass? I was in San Francisco. I was like talking to the guy, like I was going to the gate for my flight to Sacramento. I was like, okay, so here's my situation. I don't have a boarding pass for this flight, but here's my baggage thing. What do I do? And he was like, okay, so let me see what I can do here. It's like, can I see that baggage thing? This is kind of weird. It's like, huh. So it seems like there's some kind of miscommunication between Air Canada and United and stuff like that. And it's like, we don't have you a seat on the plane. We're going to put you on standby. And I was like, so I'm not, I don't have a seat on the plane. And I'm like less than 100, I'm like 100 miles away from home. This is BS. So I'm sitting there, I got like my parents on standby to drive to San Francisco, or I'm gonna fly home to Sacramento. It's like, somehow, I'm gonna either get home by car, or I'm gonna get home by plane. And so, after, you know, a bunch of, some time of like figuring things out, they got like some overriding thing. There was this, they were saying like the flight was full and stuff like that, and then they got me onto the flight. I went on the flight, I sat down, and they closed the doors. It was a propeller plane, by the way, and the one time I was on a propeller plane in my life, it was like from Miami to Tampa or something like that. I don't know. I threw up. I was like, oh god, I cannot handle this. This propeller plane, it's loud, it is shaky, it's like, ugh, and I'm gonna throw up. I never throw up on planes. I've never thrown up a plane, but I threw up on one propeller plane. Second time on a propeller plane in my life, I was like, oh shit. I don't want to throw up. But anyways, back to my story. I am going way off track here. I sat down. There was not a person next to me. Not only was there a seat on the plane for me, there was a seat for another me on the plane. I could have been on the plane twice. Another poor soul who got trapped in San Francisco and needed to go to Sacramento could have gone on my flight, but they did not. What the hell was that? What is with that ordeal? Just get me on the flight! But I made it home, safe and sound. And yeah, then I collapsed on my bed because that was like a 10 or 11 hour day. And then chilled. Meanwhile, chilled. He's just like, you know what? You know what? I'm not going to take a plane home. I'm going to take a train home to New York. And now it's just like, why did you take a train? He ended up getting home faster than me. By train than I did by plane. It was like an 11-hour train ride. I was like, what the hell? What the hell? I should have took a train. Even though it was all the way across the country, I probably would have got there faster. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Anyways, yeah, that's my trip. I hope a lot of that made sense. I was just kind of going blah. And yeah, I'll be playing more of this game. I just wanted to share my stories and stuff like that with you guys. There's also a lot more to talk about, but I don't know. I'll probably post more pictures or something. I don't know. Anyways, I'll see you guys later when I play more Mighty Quest for Epic Loot and stuff like that when it's all live.